Give me some cream, Atrioc.
I don't want to do any cream metaphors talking about Jeffrey Epstein.
Hey, give me the cream on Jeffrey Epstein,
I just want to
Atrioc.
give you guys a minor update. You know, it's been discussed ad nauseum all over the place. I think it's really important. This Epstein thing is not going away for Donald Trump so far. Unlike most other political scandals that he's bulletproofly navigated through, it seems like this is sticking a little bit louder and longer than other things. There's a real demand from people in his own base to release these files.
Don't make a pun. Do not make a pun.
What's your pun?
Oh, okay. Never mind.
I don't
We're
even
good.
know what the pun was.
Okay.
Didn't make a pun.
I'm saying
say
this
it.
is serious. This is serious. We shouldn't joke about it. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not,
You shouldn't be smiling and laughing right now.
You
This is-
could joke about it. It is cosmically funny that this is all going on.
Your words. Okay? I think Jeffrey Epstein isn't that funny.
Interesting.
Personally.
I
I don't think it's that funny what he did.
I'm not saying what he did was funny, Doug.
Oh, you think
I'm
him
saying this-
killing himself was funny?
Well, we don't know if that happened. Aiden has different theories.
He might have done it.
It's Schrodinger's suicide.
What I'm saying is, of all the issues he's been polled on, this is by far his worst polling issue in the history of both terms of Donald Trump.
Damn.
It's negative 44 disapproval to approval, like 44% more disapprove than approve. People are deeply upset about it. He is now in a lawsuit with Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox. Like, that's a breaking of that's a fracturing of an empire that helped make him. You know, we're just seeing this weird unwind. And as there's a demand for a vote on it, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, Republican, closed down the House so they couldn't vote. Like today, this happened today. There was going to be a vote to release the files, and they just sent everybody home, so they can't do it. So we're in the middle of like a pretty big demand, and many of the Republican House reps were, on social media demanding, like, what the fuck's going on? We want to be able to. I think they're maybe appealing to their base or whatever, but this is happening. So this is all happening live. And I think until there's some more news on it, people are going to keep asking. I don't think it's going to be like, fuck it, move on. That's my theory. Possibly it is, because we all have brain rotted.
There's a couple things I think are really funny about this,
Okay.
which I understand.
I didn't say
at
that.
large, not a funny situation. But I do think it's really interesting that if you look back, Trump never himself made this a core tenet of his campaign or platform. There's one interview where he said, like, I would release the files, and then he goes on to clarify, but I would be careful about how I would release them, and like, you wouldn't want
A lot of
anybody to
phony
get harmed.
stuff in there, he
A lot of
says.
phony stuff in there. And that's like one of the only times he himself talks about this.
Yeah.
Everybody around him that campaigned with him, it became this large issue within his base, and now it's biting him in the ass.
Okay,
It-
you were right. This is funny. It's actually pretty funny.
It's not something that Trump himself was like, he wasn't campaigning on, yes, I will get into office and I will release the files and we need to hold people accountable. He's always been like, you don't know. You just don't know. But all of the people around him like really latched onto this issue, especially during his last campaign. And all of the media pundits that lean more right or very far right really have captured this issue for a long time. So I think it almost accidentally became a rallying cry for the people in his base. And I think that's very interesting that he never wanted this, but it is coming to haunt him now, at least from the way I see it. The other thing that I kind of wanted to posture a question to people listening right now. I do think there is a theme here of the big, beautiful bill and the deficit spending sort of fracturing this tech rights support he had that was more intent about moderating the deficit or the debt, right? And then we come along to the issue of how he handles Iran. And
Wait, on the tech right thing, I mean, Elon Musk is the one that kicked off this whole Donald Trump will not release the Epstein files because he's in them. Like that was part of that fracturing.
so he puts that out there, right?
yeah.
And then we come to the issue of Iran, the possibility of getting involved in another foreign war. Not getting involved in another foreign war is another core tenet of his campaign and his political constituency.
Yeah.
So we start to see more fracturing of support from that issue, right? And then this Epstein issue really rises up and seems to be another place where there's a huge break among a lot of people who support him on, well, why won't you release this? I don't understand why you just refuse to release these files, right? So there's a media narrative right now that the base on the right is fracturing, but the media and the way people like to talk about these things, especially if you're generally opposed to that position, I think people like to latch on to any clue or hint that the other side is weakening. People like the idea of the tides turning and themselves starting to win. And oftentimes reports of, let's call it the leopards ate my face arguments, are not really representative or true of how the opposing side actually is feeling or fracturing. And I wanted to know from people who maybe have more conservative family members or friends, or if you're a more conservative person listening to this podcast, do you feel like these issues are actually fracturing the Republican, or let's say more MAGA base on that side? Because I want to have a more realistic understanding rather than me looking at the media that's fed to me. These 3 back-to-back issues, especially the Epstein thing, are they actually swaying people's opinions on this stuff?
There's a good tweet that is related to what you're saying. Well, I'd like to see old Donnie Trump wriggle his way out of this jam. Trump wriggles his way out of the jam easily. Well, nevertheless, I'd like to see, and then it just loops. And we've seen this a billion times. And I do often wonder, because it's exactly what you're saying. People are so excited for the downfall. And this is, there's whole Reddits about just people jerking off of like Trump Gret or something that it's called, of this idea. And I also agree, it's hard to get a real on the ground thing, but certainly from my perspective as well, having not followed what he did in nearly as much depth in the 2016 term, it feels like his base is upset. Back in 2015, it was like everybody else besides the hardcore MAGA are pissed off, but they're still really loyal. And this is like, they seem really unhappy. I don't know.
I've seen this iconic tweet, and that's sort of what I'm saying is before this is my default response. He seems to get through a lot of it.
Yeah.
This feels different. We could be wrong. It's a fully fair point.
That's why I want to know. I feel
I
like
asked
it could
this
be
question
different.
to my stream, and I got some Republican people reaching out. They basically said the diehard of the diehard have not changed. They're 90%. They're locked in. But there's people that used to have the flags and the hats that now don't. They still support him, but it's more quietly. It's just like this open enthusiasm is clearly waning. The huge surge he had among young people is evaporating. Gen Z specifically has completely flipped in all polling on Trump. Like you'd see right here, it's massively, it's a purple line there. -40 approval of young people. It was even at the start of his term. Like they have buyer's remorse here. They thought they were getting something different than what they're getting. You can always say, well, who cares about polling? Nothing happens. Everything's the same. I don't think he has the same level of enthusiasm and support as he started the term with. I think that's actually a pretty fair thing to say. I think it's pretty, and I think it's more negative now than it was then. I think people have not loved the way he's governed the way they thought they would when they voted in the election. That's my honest feel. I don't even think it's a biased take. I think that's where people are landing.
It's really going to hurt him for his third election.
We should talk about that next week, but yeah. Who's going in 28, whether this matters. It could happen in the midterms. I mean, this could matter. We don't need to talk about it too much more, but my guess is that, I don't know, I can never underestimate people's ability to be like, what's next? Move on to the next thing. But I think this has some sticking power. Like people will keep asking about it. Until
people get really, really fired up about pedophiles for some reason. I just, why can't people just chill out?
That's like basically what he's saying, by the way.
That is.
Well, I actually broke this down to somebody this week. I was trying to explain why I think this is such an important thing beyond the subject matter being so heavy. It's not a political issue to say that people don't like pedophiles. Like that's
pretty
wow. We're
cross.
still managing to be bipartisan on that one. But I was trying to describe why this has so much momentum from this political angle or base. And I think it's because if you work back, like why is this issue that feels very disconnected from what Trump has actually said about it so important to this crowd of people? And it tracks all the way back like before the 2016 election, where stuff like Pizzagate was like a year before leading up to the election, right? Kind of like Pizzagate time period, Hillary's leaked emails time period. There's a lot of momentum.
Pokemon Go to the polls. Good time.
There's a lot of momentum for, I would say, conspiracy theories circulating around like Democrats being involved in like rings of pedophilia. And then Epstein kind of enters this public conversation on the internet that to a degree that I had not seen before. He was arrested in the 2000s. It's kind of been known that Epstein was a bad guy, right? But in the mid 2010s and leading up to the election, the Epstein stuff starts to get kind of tied into reporting leading up to the election and tied into other things that are more conspiratorial, I would say, like Pizzagate. If you were checking 4chan at the time, if I'm being honest, QAnon and this idea of the deep state and like pedophilia and all of this stuff is building a lot of momentum. It always existed online before this.
Yeah.
Like there's the Alex Jones crowd, the idea that politicians like meet up in the woods and sacrifice people and all of that. All of this like existed in like little threads and ideas, but hadn't reached this like place in popular culture, I would say, especially not in mainstream media. If you're like a diehard right-wing MAGA sort of guy and you've been on the internet, this type of issue has been so pressing for you for like over a decade. And now you're in a position where the Epstein himself has been arrested. There seems to be a conspiracy around him being murdered. He's directly linked to all these powerful people. It's like the most concrete version of any conspiracy theory you've been perpetuating or engaging with for more than 10 years. And your guy is finally in office, and he has all the power in the world with all of the people around him who are completely unchecked compared to the people that were around him in his first administration who often said no and wouldn't let him do things. And you have the files in hand and it's like you've been frothing for this moment, right? And now he won't do it. And you've been promised by all of these people around him for so long. So I can imagine if you are in that position, it's incredibly frustrating. Like it seems insane that you're not getting the information that you've kind of sought after for 10, maybe more years.
This is like 9/11 for 9/11 conspiracy theorists.
Kind of, yeah. Like you're telling a joke, but it's like if we arrested George Bush for 9/11. Like and the files were not being shown
like,
and George Bush killed himself in jail. Like I don't know. Like, it is kind of like that. And I was trying to just lay out all of that context for why I think this is so important to so many people who have been in this space for a long time. I just remember reading and like seeing that stuff happen at the time. Like there's an undercurrent that led to this stuff becoming so mainstream to begin with.
I mean, that explains why it's important to them. But, this feels like a bipartisan important issue. This feels like people broadly are mad about this, and it's kind of uniting people asking questions. This is one of the few issues that seemingly has bipartisan support in the House and Senate, except for when these votes to release it come out. People talk about it the same.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's like the bit. It's the real test will be like the bill, right? Except it's not a budget bill. It's about leaking the information about the pedophile who's dead now and all the people he trafficked. We'll see who holds to their word or not.
What I keep coming back to, which is so weird, because normally Trump is really good at like rallying his base around stuff. You mentioned this. He's like the GOAT of like reading the room. And this is the one time that I've seen him just totally miss the mark, because they released information. They released footage of his jail cell. And they're like, see, nobody went in. They're like, we looked through all the things, all the documents. There's nothing in there incriminating anybody. There's no list, right? They said all these things, and they did supposedly, they did all this research, and then they released it. But they just said, and there isn't a list and there's no conspiracy. Sorry. And that came out from Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and all them. And what they should have done been like, there isn't a list. This probably goes even deeper than we thought. But right now we don't have anything, right? That would have kept everybody happy.
He sort of did do that. I mean, he said he's still implying there's like a list, but it was written by Obama and
no, but like Kash and Pam are like, there was never a list. Like, get over it.
Yeah.
Right. And he's saying, like, guys, why are people still obsessed with this? All he had to do was frame this as like, we've been foiled again by the deep state and we're going to get them next time. And just like rally people around even more and make the fact that there's no list or they're not willing to release it part of the story. It's so baffling to me that they didn't do that.
It'd be funny to see, because part of me does think that would have worked better. But the idea of blaming the deep state when you hold every conceivable position of power in government is...
But all the people who want this to be the big juicy conspiracy, like the core people we're talking about, that this seems to upset them in a way that nothing else Trump has done. Like they just needed another, worm to go after. They just needed to chase another car. But he was like, guys, the car isn't real. Stop chasing the car. Yeah. That was his mistake. If he was like, the car is actually way down there. The Democrats like used whiteout on the pages and we can't see what was underneath. Like that's all they had to do. He just had to pretend like it goes deeper.
They didn't. Well, I think that's kind of what he like half-assed.
Yeah, he sort of did that.
He tried to do that.
He was like, why is everybody still obsessed about it? They are dumb for doing this.
Yeah,
like
but then he tried to course correct and then say
he did
it was written by the Democrats.
Written by the
after.
radical.
Gotcha. Okay. I guess
Obama.
I didn't see the.
And I'll go on the record. I bet you if there's a book and names in it, and those pictures of the binders with blacked out names on it, I bet you there's some Democrats on there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't release under Biden.
Charge
either.
the Democrat. I'll say it here first.
Oh, wow,
Charge
brave.
the Democrats.
Release the list, huh?
Yeah. How? Look how brave I'm being. Anyway, I